School decline. The causes, effects, and ways of minimizing the effects. Presented by Jana Wessels, and there is my student number. This is for assignment 2 for my take-home exam. One of the reasons that cause school decline is that the students are absent at school. Let's look at the causes, effects, and improvisation of this societal issue. What causes students to be absent? We've got our 5 reasons that I'm going to be explaining tonight, and one of them is personal factors. Personal factors would entail a student's personal frame of reference. This means that it is most probably physical. Maybe the student is physically hurt, it's a personal thing, or the student is emotionally not doing well, so they decide not to come to school. We could look at depression, we can look at chronic illnesses. There could be multiple reasons. I think when we look at South African context, I think in most South African schools, a doctor's letter is normally required for medical problems if we look at personal factors. So a student just being absent without any notes or without any medical references, that would be a problem, and I think the parents would most probably be contacted. But also personal factors, if we look at the more rural area in South Africa, we have a, a more difficult way to handle this because most students that are struggling with these factors, they are not even identified most of the time. So students struggling with ADHD, or students struggling with depression, or students struggling with most other problems that or would have been discussed and handled if they had the proper medical care and medical support, or even at school, if there was a possibility to have an occupational therapist at school, which is very limited in South Africa. So I think one of the reasons would be for students to be absent is for personal factors. And in the rural sector, most of the time, those personal factors aren't even identified yet. If we look at our second reason, socio-economical factors, this regards more to which financially stable group a student's parents and their environment fall into. So in South Africa, we have got mostly two extremes. We've got an extreme of being very, very financially unstable, not being able to afford a lot. And then we have a jump to having an extremely wealthy parent, extremely wealthy child. And I think if we first look at the rural environment, then discussing the socioeconomic factors, the student maybe financially couldn't afford to come to school. It's too far to walk, maybe. There's maybe not money for petrol, many factors like that. Or the parents are absent. The parents are not at home, the guardians are not at home because they are working, trying to get an income, and the child is left to make the decision of coming to school to their own. So that is quite a problem. And yes, so if we look at the more financially stable parents, this happens very rarely, but I think with parents that are very financially stable, the focus on the child becomes a lot less, and sometimes the child will maybe act out trying to get the parents' attention, and they stay at home or rebel to kind of get that attention from that they are not getting at home. So then they stay away from school. Schooling factors would entail bullying, maybe not only between peers, maybe from a teacher to the student. Bullying is a large one that I think most people don't even realize they are doing. I think students also, if you are a bully, you are reacting to something in your life. So school factors would be a child would maybe stay home because of the fear of coming to school. Environmental factors and family factors. If we look at family factors, then I think this would be maybe a family member passing away, or maybe a really bad family situation where the students cannot come to school, where it's not a safe environment at home. but there's no way of escaping that safe environment. So they'd rather stay away from school. And yes, if we look at environmental factors, this would be something that is most probably not in the child's control. I think we've got a lot of rural areas in South Africa, and if we look at the impact of our rural communities and fires and floods and all of that, there's no way that the student could be ready for school the next day if there was just a large environmental problem at home. So that would also be a reason for the student not coming to school. If we look at the effects of absentees, this means that the student is not at school, he is absent, but what is the effects of these things on the student? First of all, the student is immediately disadvantaged in learning. They are behind, they need to catch up. This means they need to do double the work that they normally would have done. They also perform more poorly on exams because they didn't have that opportunity of really delving into the work and into the content that was taught. So immediately that sets them behind in their learning, but also sets them behind on what they achieve during exams or during assessment periods. So they automatically also receive lower grades, and at the end, they are more likely to drop out of school. Receiving a lower grade is normally not really handled well in the education system of South Africa. I think there's lots of manipulation, there is lots of if a student receives a bad grade, public shaming also happens in the classroom. So that could also be a reason for a student not arriving at school. And this all because of those emotional and unbalanced socioeconomic factors, the student is more likely to drop out of school. If we look at a way for improvising this, I think schools need to consider variations in schools' attendance as early warning indicators. So to limit school decline, the school needs to know this is a warning sign that the students are not coming to school. Educators and health professionals can make the most of cutting edge advancements in adolescent care delivery alternatives. Simultaneously, this kind of approach improves education, one of the most important childhood undertakings that keeps society working normally. So, the most important thing I think for improvising this is having a good system, which is difficult in South Africa, but it is possible. Having educators and health professionals to to support the students who are not coming to school, to make a plan, to involve the community. Um, and that is, I think, what South Africa also does really well, is they support each other. So that is my look on school decline and the effects of students staying at home, and that results normally in school decline. And how are we going to improvise that? And how we are going to improvise that? Thank you so much.